Secretary General condemns in the strongest terms today's attack against the Bardo Museum in central Tunis and deplores the loss of life. He conveys his deepest condolences to the families of the victims of this deplorable act. The Secretary General also expresses his solidarity with the Tunisian people and the Tunisian authorities.
As we welcome you in for Hour 2 of America's Forum with Miranda Kahn on the anchor desk, J.D. Hayworth, and from Newsmax LA, our good friend Larry Elder. We should note that was a UN spokesman for Secretary General Ban Ki-moon offering condolences after the museum attack in Tunis, as well as support for the Tunisian people.
This as State Department spokesperson Jen Psaki says the U.S. Embassy will remain open there.
To go in depth on the dangers that diplomats face, we're pleased to be joined by Ambassador András Simonyi, who is the former Hungarian ambassador to the United States. Obviously, András, there are different postings around the world, different dangers. You represented Hungary, but I'm interested in your take on what's going on with American ambassadors. For example, the U.S. Embassy in Tunis was attacked in 2012. Are you concerned that the American Embassy in Tunisia is going to remain open there today?
I think it's a strong message that the U.S. Embassy remains open. It's a strong message of solidarity, a message that the United States feel strongly about Tunisian democracy and will not back off just because there is a terrible terrorist attack. But let me just tell you that, you know, I think it's a good moment for the public to understand that diplomacy is not just partying and tuxedos at cocktail parties. It is hard work, and sometimes diplomats are in harm's way.
Diplomats have been in harm's way. Of course, we know about what happened in Libya, what happened in Korea, and now this apparent threat against Caroline Kennedy in Japan. Are Americans becoming increasingly targets, not just because of the war on terror, but because we're America?
I think Americans have been a target for a long time just because it's America, just because it stands for democracy, for freedom, just because it opposes totalitarian regimes. But there's something very special about the threat on Ambassador Kennedy. Look, there are very few names in the world that are as recognizable as the Kennedy name. And if you want, the Caroline Kennedy is, quote unquote, the perfect person to be threatened and attacked. There is something very, very symbolic about the Kennedy family. You know, it's when you attack a Kennedy, someone from the Kennedy family, it's almost like attacking the United States, the President of the United States, which is an institution that stands for democracy and freedom. And that's really the point. I hope people understand the context of this. When they attack, when they threaten the life of Ambassador Kennedy, it's really a strong message about America. But I do hope she's well protected and that she will not be harmed.
András, we want to ask you, what do you make of reports? We're hearing reports that ISIS announced that there was an imminent attack coming in Tunisia just days before the actual shooting.
Well, I think, you know, ISIS is on the roll, and of course, it comes to me as no surprise that it is attacking Tunisia, which pretty much is the most successful result of the Arab Spring, with a strong possibility that democracy will take root in Tunisia. So I'm not surprised at all. And I think it just is a strong signal that we, from the West, need to help countries like Tunisia to keep up their good work.
But do you think we should take those threats more seriously?
I think the threats are very serious, and I think we need to push back.
Mindful of that, this question, I guess, almost a personal one, András. You're a former ambassador. With the dangers around the world so apparent now, would you consider a return to diplomacy?
No, I wouldn't. I'm having a great time commenting on diplomacy on your show.
Well, and you're diplomatic in offering those assessments, to say the least. There is a lot going on in the world, Andres, that we appreciate your expertise on. In fact, we are going to continue this conversation. That's why we're so pleased to have Larry Elder up early out at Newsmax LA for his perspective as well. When we come back, more of the hot spots and more of the calming effect that we hope diplomacy can provide. That's straight ahead as we continue our conversation with András Simonyi here on America's Forum.
We hope that there will be a recognition that this is the major supporter, promoter, and exporter of terrorism in the world today. The Revolutionary Guard of Iran, which is increasing its control over the country because of the elections, which were a stark example of the abuse of human rights in action, is deeply involved in the economy as well as the security issues of Iran. And I think that if people want to flirt with Iran, they should take a look at what the consequences might well be for them.
No need to adjust your set. That was, in fact, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton back in 2009 warning Latin American nations about establishing diplomatic links with Iran.
You know, she may have been ahead of the curve on this one, JD. Republicans held a hearing yesterday about Iran's growing influence in Latin America. I see that expression you're making, specifically, though, in Argentina and Venezuela.
It's something we've heard about for a long time, and it bears watching. That's why we continue our conversation now with András Simonyi, the former Hungarian ambassador to the United States, and with our own Larry Elder from Newsmax LA. So, Andreas, let's just set this up. Geopolitically, what does Iran gain by forging ties with Latin America?
I think what the intention of Iran is to weaken the influence of the United States, and forging ties in Latin America does exactly that. So I think we should be alert. I think we should be very careful. And I think while, of course, we want to find an agreement with Iran, hopefully a good agreement, I think that it's important that Iran does have ambitions beyond just its own region. And don't forget, the blowing up of the synagogue in Buenos Aires is a fact, and Iran was behind it, whether people admit it or not, whether the present Argentinian government admits it or not.
Ambassador, given all the things that Iran has been doing, they are, as Hillary said, the #1 exporter of terror in the world. They were involved in helping to manufacture increasingly more sophisticated IEDs, involved in all sorts of things. Why are we, in my opinion, slow walking them towards acquiring a nuke?
Let me remain a diplomat on that.
Am I wrong, Ambassador?
I would, I want to stay out of U.S. politics, but I have some. Let me repeat. I want to remain diplomatic. I have very strong feelings about about Iran and its intentions, and I have some worries about the naivete that some people have concerning Iran. So I do believe that there is a major danger there. Don't forget that in the Middle East, the balance of power has been totally upset, and Iran is pretty much to gain. So we should be very careful.
So I'm just going to come out and ask you again, even though you're trying to be diplomatic, should we trust Iran? Should we make a deal with them? What would it take for you to trust Iran again?
I think to trust Iran, there can be no limitations on our ability to go into Iran and inspect in any way we want to, at any moment we want to, and using any means we want to, personal, electronic, and otherwise. If we are not able to fully supervise what Iran is doing with its nuclear plans, I think we cannot make a proper deal with Iran. And And that's really a very, very important element. Nobody should be naive about the Iranians. And don't forget, Iran is a very, very powerful, very strong country that is waiting for the sanctions to be lifted. And you know, the question really is, what happens after it regains some strength, after it recovers economically, after it floods the world with its oil? And you know, that's the big question. I wouldn't look at the Iran nuclear problem as a standalone problem. I think it's part of a bigger problem, and we should all be very, very careful how we deal with it.
András Simonyi, you pierced the veil of diplomacy to offer a few personal priorities there, but you remain the diplomat, and we very much appreciate your input today, sir, as you join us from Newsmax Washington. We should note that if our viewers want to find out more about the terror threat that ISIS represents and its rise to power, you can get the book Rise of ISIS, A Threat We Can't Ignore, for a deeply discounted price. All you need to do is go to our website, newsmax.com/terror threat. Stay with us. When we come back, Larry Elder will be in L.A. and we'll welcome in Ron Hosko, former assistant director of the FBI, about jihadists in the U.S.